Good afternoon. Welcome everyone. Sunday afternoon, Amaravati, regular Vasa Dhamma talk. I'll begin with chanting the Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, so this afternoon's Dhamma talk is titled, Even the Sasana Will Pass Away. They think up these titles and then we choose them. But in a sense, okay, I think I can talk about that because it's really it's pointing to that fundamental truth of anicca, of impermanence, of change, of uncertainty, and so that it applies to everything, even the most cherished things that we have will also pass away. So I was knowing that I'd be giving this talk, then just pondering, okay, what would be useful to talk about? And then I started thinking of some suttas, and so then I go and look them up, and very enjoyable for me anyway. And then I started thinking, if I try to remember these, I'm just going to mangle them. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do something that isn't usually done in a Dhamma talk, and in our tradition is I've got a cheat sheet here, and with the sutta quotes, because I'll probably read them to you as just the words of the Buddha, rather than, as they say, my mangled words. My memory was never that great to begin with, but I'm of the age now where memory is starting to be a memory of the past. I used to have a memory, so it's. But anyway, that sense of even the sasana will pass away is a really beautiful thing to contemplate, in that sense of all that arises ceases, and it doesn't really matter whether it's from the the most grand and cherished things that we have and or that we're affiliated with, or the things that are seemingly inconsequential. That's the nature of all things. And so just to be able to use that as a contemplation in our practice and in our daily life is really, really important. I think essential for any kind of peace, because the resistance that we can easily have of things changing, not being the same, bemoaning the fact that it has changed. What's going to happen if it does change? All of the things that are proliferating mind can get up to, and and that's actually a characteristic of of a great being, a great person. Sapurisa is the there's a discourse where Anuruddha is in the forest, and he starts thinking of the things that would be suitable thoughts for a great person. Of course, it's thoughts of virtue, of mindfulness, of renunciation, of all these beautiful things, and he went back to the Buddha and explained, I had this great meditation this afternoon, and this is what I was thinking. These were the thoughts of a great being, and what good an accomplished person would think in this way, and the Buddha approved and said, yes, that's exactly it. But you could add one more to that, and so the last thought would be thoughts leading to non-proliferation rather than leading to proliferation, because that's again, our thoughts get tangled up in proliferating, worrying, projecting, getting caught up in who's right and who's wrong, and we create suffering for ourselves. And rather than say acknowledging and recognizing, oh, this is different, or this is changed, or this is how do I work with this change? This title of even the Sasana will pass away is looking to it's using the, say, maybe the macrocosm of on a big scale. There is change, but change happens on every single level down to the just moment-to-moment basis within the mind. And so being able to reflect and investigate and take into account this reality of change, of uncertainty, and that's this truth of anicca, and Ajahn Chah used to translate. The normal translation would be impermanence. That's a fair enough translation. It's what we're used to, and it certainly accords with truth. But the way that Ajahn Chah would, not always, but from time to time, and reasonably frequently, he would translate it or point to the truth of uncertainty. It's unsure. It's uncertain, and that's a different flavor to this truth of anicca, because usually when we think of impermanence, then we tend to be looking externally. Okay, and it's true. Everything is changing. Everything's objectively impermanent. Both externally, internally, big or small, macrocosm, microcosm, everything is changing. But then how we hold it or how we feel about it is, that's unsure. And that's uncertain. And to be able to take into account both the objective and the subjective is really an importance. So how's it? Yeah, even the Sasana will pass away. Even the religion, the Buddhist dispensation will pass away. So, how does that feel? So it's important because again, we can, on an intellectual level, sometimes we can grasp it, but then we say, oh, even the things that are most cherished, wow, even that's going to pass away. And that's, so being able to hold that in a way where we're not shaken and not proliferating, not getting caught in the conjecture or the that mental proliferation and that entangles us in things that just complicate. Or there's another translation for that word. Proliferation is non-complication. Some of the thoughts of a great being are inclining to non-complication. You think, wow, what would that be like? So that's wow, because that's really a peaceful mind. It's just not complicating anything. And that's not. Also, another aspect that Ajahn Chah would point to or would emphasize, and you say, or say very explicitly, that they say whatever speech doesn't take into account the reality of impermanence or anicca or of uncertainty is not the speech of a wise person. And so that I think, oh, how much does my speech reflect wisdom, and how much is it just projection of either of permanence or stability or of expectation of something, and whether it's even expectation of change, because you can look on that as, oh, this is going to be a sure thing, and it's going to change like this. Say, no, there's no control. So it's we can put conditions in place, but we also have to be ready to have the wisdom to accept and to adapt, and to not complicate. And so that's an important aspect of this truth of arising and falling away. Another translation that of anicca is from another say prolific translator is Ajahn Jeff Tanisaro Bhikkhu. He's done a lot of translation work, a lot of things that are available to us, oftentimes come, and oftentimes for myself, even when I go and, because it's all gathered, his translations of both of Thai teachers as well as the Pali Suttas. They're on his website. Access the Insight before. I think it's on Dhamma Talks now. And it's easy to cut and paste because he doesn't. It's not copyrighted. So it's. But sometimes, and some of his translations are great. Some of them are a bit clunky. But I think it's important that there are many different translations to because getting a feel for what the Buddha was pointing to. Because one of the way that he translates anicca is inconstancy. It's not a word we use that often in English, but it's more like inconstancy is something that's constant. It's constant. It's stable. It's unmoving, and something that is, something that is nicca is stable. It's steady. This is really solid, and something that's anicca is something that is inconstant, unstable. It is so that it's not a. Once you get around the fact that we're not so familiar with the term, it's actually a good good translation. At least it's a good, say, supplement or good complementary translation. And that's some, of course, some of the quotes that I come up with are, as I said, because of his website not being copyrighted, then it's easy to copy and paste and just not complicated. So there's a certain amount of laziness to that as well, but it's also, I think, it's worth reflecting. So that there is a sutta that Anguttara 7, Sutta number 46. Sanya Sutta, it's a sanya is a perception, so that these are perceptions that one relies on or develops or brings to mind over and over again in order to help incline the mind to the Dhamma. Because our thought processes are led by perception, and perception and memory go together, recognition. So that the sutta goes, the perception of inconstancy, so this is definitely an Ajahn Jeff translation, perception of inconstancy when developed and pursued is of great fruit, of great benefit. It gains a footing in the deathless, has the deathless as its final end. Thus was it said, in reference to what was it said. So when a monk's awareness often remains steeped in the perception of inconstancy, his mind shrinks away from gains, offering, and fame, bends away, pulls back, is not drawn in. And either equanimity or disenchantment take a stance. Just as a cock's feather or a piece of tendon, when thrown into a fire, shrinks away, bends away, pulls back, and is not drawn in the same way when a monk's awareness often remains steeped in the perception of inconstancy, his mind shrinks away from gains, offerings, and fame, bends away, pulls back, and is not drawn in, and either equanimity or disenchantment take a stance. If when a monk's awareness it often remains steeped in the perception of inconstancy, if it does incline, then one recognizes, there's no step-by-step distinction. I've not arrived at the fruit of mental development. In that way, he is alert there. So it's like still using the perception, but recognizing, oh, gosh, I thought I was practicing okay. And then you start to realize, greed and self-importance start cropping up. You say, okay, that's a clear indication. I got more work to do. But then when it is to say that awareness is often remains steeped in the perception of inconstancy, the mind shrinks away from gains, offering, and fame, bends away, and either equanimity or disenchantment take a stance, then he should realize, I have developed the perception of inconstancy. There is a step-by-step distinction in me. I have arrived at the fruit of mental development. In that way, he is alert there. So that when his perception is developed and pursued, it's of great fruit, great benefit. It gains a footing in the deathless, has the deathless as its final end. Thus was it said. So it's just a beautiful reminder of the power of that. And that's, of course, this is using an example of a monk, but a layperson, exactly the same in a sense. You know how much of our time gets entangled with trying to get stuff, trying to get more, trying to keep up with others, feeling a sense of lack because others have something I don't have, and that as he says, just that perception of inconstancy or perception of change, the passing away of all things. So that helps to attenuate that because it's a deep-rooted tendency in the heart, and the and yeah, in gaining a footing in the the deathless, of course, is another word, is a synonym for nibbana, and so oftentimes the especially here at Amaravati, and there's many people will, like before the meal, we read these dedications, and oftentimes there's this, may these offerings be a blessing. May they soon experience the bliss of nibbana, which is a wonderful intention. But sometimes it's easier to wish others than to do what you need to do yourself, and so that's and certainly sort of picking up that reflective investigation that helps to cool the heart and allow the mind to settle, and just not getting inclined to that sense of gain and materiality, or the props of personal being, the personalizing of our any kind of stance that we take, a position. So it's important aspect of how to use these reflections. That's one of the things certainly Ajahn Chah used to emphasize over and over again. They say the sign of spiritual progress is not some dazzling states of samadhi and brilliant illuminating insights. It's what is much more a clear indication of maturing on the path is the inclination to disenchantment and relinquishment. This not hanging on, not holding on, not entangling oneself. Again, this sense non-complication. To me, it's a beautiful. It's a simple concept, but it's the more you reflect on it, it's just how spacious and bright the mind can really be when we're not complicating anything, and so that again, that internalizing the reflection on anicca, inconstancy. And that sense of even the Sasana will pass away, that sort of the world outside, because the Sasana, the dispensation of the Buddha is it's part and parcel of the world we live in. It manifests as monasteries and teachings and communities and whatnot, but it manifests in the world. And there's a sutta from the Samyutta Nikaya, Samyutta 35, number 82. It's called the Loka Sutta. And Loka, of course, for those who are a little bit familiar, that means world. And then a certain monk went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, the world, it is said, in what respect does the word world apply? Insofar as it disintegrates, monk, it is called the world. And of course, the Buddha is using a play on words in the Pali language, and he uses a word that's similar to the same similar sort of root. So it's just a playing on the words and on pun, which is any language loves to wordplay, and certainly the Buddha was somebody who he played with language. Sometimes scripture becomes very stiff and locked in place, and you can forget the human element of and a person. There's a personality behind this great religious and spiritual teacher, and part of it is it's like wordplay. It's like, say, somebody like Ajahn Chah. I loved to play with words. You just sort of you start seeing connections, and sometimes it helps to illustrate points of Dhamma just by the juxtaposition of like two concepts together, so that this sense of playing on the word world and playing on the word to disintegrate or to change. It's another synonym for change and falling away, inconstancy. So insofar as it disintegrates, monks, it is called the world. Now, what disintegrates? The I disintegrates, form disintegrates. And then goes consciousness at the I disintegrates, contact at the I disintegrates. Whatever that arises in dependence on contact of the I, experiences pleasure, pain, or neither pleasure or pain, that too disintegrates. So it says, or now what changes? What's impermanent? The I, the sense base, the external sense of form that one sees, the actual registering of sight, the consciousness, the contact, the feeling that arises. And then, of course, then the Buddha goes through the whole sense bases, all of the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind itself. This is what we call the world. And what's the nature of the world? It disintegrates, it's changing, it's in flux, it is uncertain. So it's a being able to reflect on, that's by its very nature, that's what the world is, and it can't ever be anything more than that, it can't be less than that. It's just what it is. And so that because what we perceive as the world, and we say, the world is a good place, the world is a bad place, the world is attractive, the world is unattractive. The Buddha's dispensation, the Sasana, is the same. It's of the same nature. It arises, it ceases, it comes into being, it passes, and so that they say that and because it disintegrates or changes or is uncertain, doesn't mean that it can't be relied upon and used skillfully. That's the whole purpose of the teachings. It's like there's a story of Ajahn Chah coming to the West. I think it might have been in America. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was at an airport, and could have been in England here as well. They're waiting for a plane at the airport, and an older person. He looked, maybe a middle-aged man. Was well dressed and came up and asked Ajahn Chah, and sort of said, "Oh, are you a monk?" He says, yes. Oh, are you a Buddhist monk? I said, yes, I'm a Buddhist monk. And are you from Thailand? I said, yes, I'm from Thailand. And in Thailand, isn't everybody Buddhist? And she said, yeah, most everybody's Buddhist. I said, well, if that's the case, why are there thieves in Thailand? So kind of leading questions. Why are there thieves? And Ajahn says, oh, well, the Buddha didn't tell them to do that. They do that themselves. So you have to, yes, the Sasana is there, the dispensation is there, the teachings are there. It can be a part and parcel of a cultural identity, but you still have to use it skillfully. You still have to use it with wisdom. You have to learn how to take these teachings and apply them within the heart and within how one interacts with the world around you. Even if the world is disintegrating and changing, that doesn't mean there isn't the wise thing to do. It doesn't mean there isn't the virtuous and that which has integrity that one can be doing, or the mindful thing. So that sense of the perception of impermanence, perception of change, is so important. And there's a sutta, and it just in terms of the very direct application of it is this Udana 4, Sutta number 1, Meghiya Sutta. So the perception of impermanence, that's a longer sutta that has all sorts of great advice in it. But the perception of impermanence should be cultivated for the removal of the conceit I am. And that sense of, because that sense of I am as a position, and then I am something. I'm good. Oh no, I'm bad. Oh, I'm right. I'm wrong. I am always takes an object. And so then, and that's what the Buddha points to. The word conceit is not really used in the same way as in English. Because usually in English, the word conceit means to kind of lift oneself above others and to look down on those who one feels one's above. And that, but conceit from say the Buddhist perspective is any position whatsoever that one takes as an I am, whether it's I am superior, I am equal, I am inferior. Any I am position, I am good, I am bad, I am right, I am wrong, doesn't lead one, being right doesn't lead one to freedom from suffering. Oftentimes it just makes you a pain in the butt. So it's, how do you, if you can shed that sense of, holding on to that sense of I am, is and impermanence is seeing that change, seeing the inconstancy, seeing that uncertainty, so that perception of impermanence should be cultivated for the removal of the conceit I am. For when one perceives impermanence, Meghiya, the perception of not-self is established. When one perceives not-self, one reaches the removal of the conceit I am, which is called Nibbana here and now. So it's just this very direct shift from just recognizing clearly, and this is what Nibbana actually is. This is a place of freedom from suffering, freedom from greed, hate, and illusion, freedom from clinging and attachment. This is just that dropping the I making, the mind making, underlying tendency to this position taking, and that's peaceful. There's an idiom that comes up in many of the suttas where this is peaceful, this is sublime. This is a realization of truth. So that contemplating of anicca in its macrocosm and microcosm, and the big scale, the small scale, they're really fruitful. It's another discourse that is, I think, important, and that's the it's in the Anguttara 3, 134, Dhamma Niyama Sutta. Monks, whether or not there is the arising of Tathagatas or Buddhas, the Buddha, whether or not there is the arising of Tathagatas, this property stands. The steadfastness of the Dhamma, the orderliness of the Dhamma. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. The Tathagata, or the Buddha, he uses the word Tathagata when he refers to himself. The Tathagata directly awakens to that, breaks through to that, directly awakening and breaking through to that, he declares it, teaches it, describes it, sets it forth, he reveals it, explains it, and makes it plain. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. And of course, it says the same thing for dukkha and anatta, and that this truth of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. But impermanence almost invariably comes first. I think probably because it's the most tangible, and you sort of recognize it more readily. This is impermanent. This is uncertain. This is inconstant. This is changing, and that this steadfastness of the Dhamma. This truth is steadfast. It's steady. This is the way things truly are at all times, wherever, whenever, however. All phenomena are going to be impermanent, and the orderliness. There's a Dhamma so Dhamma Tittata, Dhamma Niyamata is in Pali, and it's the steadfastness. It's Dhamma Tittata. Titta is to stand. It stands on the Dhamma. It stands truth. It's standing on itself, and Niyamata is the how it fits together. How this works. The orderliness of the Dhamma. There's this beauty in its consistency. So that is a important aspect of the Buddha's teaching, that it's grounded on a natural truth. And this is the way things are. And when it's not making a judgment about it, other than if you see it clearly, it can free the heart. And it's not sort of worrying about it or complicating it. It just has this ability to liberate the heart. And when we see things, this steadfastness and orderliness of the Dhamma, of the truth. So that these are important perceptions to be bringing to mind. Their possibilities that we can keep returning to and renewing our practice. And it is important that it's something that we do renew the practice with, in the sense that we keep returning to that perception, how we perceive, how we recognize things, because the habit is to leap to some sort of conclusion of either impending disaster or of eternal gratification. It's just, and then we bounce back and forth all the time, and then wonder why we suffer. Yes. So it's this sense of building our view of ourselves and the world around us based on Dhamma, on truth. So there's a little story of that Ajahn Chah relates, of him going with some other monks to some some ancient, some old shrine or something, some monument, and some jetty, some famous jetty or some, and then the one of the monks commenting, "Oh, isn't that a shame?" Sort of. It's either that jetty is cracking, and Ajahn Chah, no cracks, no Buddhism. And it's, in the sense, even the great, beautiful monuments that are filled with relics of arhants and of the Buddha himself, these are going to be impermanent. And so the Ajahn Chah, no cracks, no Buddhism, and it's just cut through that wish for everything being the way you want it to be, or how you would like it to be, or how you think it should be, and pay attention to what is. This is the way things truly are, and we can remind ourselves, and in the same way that Ajahn Chah reminded his fellow monks. And he actually said, I said it pretty hard, but it was also teaching myself, because it's true. I mean, it's just this the inclination in the mind to want things to be stable and certain and steady and dependable. I want this world to be dependable, and that's a tough bill to fill. But the willingness to reflect from a place of Dhamma gives you a refuge where one can be at peace with the way things actually are. Yeah. I think, again, in Buddhist tradition, not just Theravada tradition, that truth of impermanence is oftentimes quite directly pointed to. I think one of the beautiful examples of that is like in Tibetan tradition, they do these incredibly beautiful and intricate sand mandalas that are depictions of Dhamma teachings and of and it's absolute pristine works of art where they're using colored sands, and it's very intricate, incredibly beautiful. It could take weeks to make with really skilled, usually monks. Weeks and weeks of effort on working. I remember they were, I mean, of course, it happens around the world, but in San Francisco, at a museum, you could go and watch them making this sound mandala. But then the kind of the grand finale of this work of art, which is an incredible act of devotion and skill, is to sweep it all up and put it into a nearby river. Impermanent. It's uncertain. It's changing. And so that the tendency would be, how can I put in some kind of polymer that would make it stable and steady? And we can look at this over and over again. But the Dhamma is much more displayed through, and truth is much more displayed through the change and uncertainty of that. And as we think in terms of say the title of the talk today, even the Sasana will fall away, and that's and it's a true statement, and if you follow it logically, and then you can end up in a place of, you can accept it logically, but how do we hold it in the heart so that there's not just kind of cold rational logic, it's all impermanent, so nothing matters, which is not true. That's an extreme position. That doesn't really align with the Buddhist teachings. And what is really like one of just thinking in terms of how we pay respects to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is always in terms of the qualities of when we think of just the words of when we pay homage, Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagawa. Those are pointing to qualities that are the qualities of the Lord Buddha. And of course, those are examples for us to be emulating and inclining towards. And what they point to is the qualities of wisdom, compassion, and purity. And they have to go together. Because sometimes if there's, say, on a wisdom basis, intellectual knowledge, everything's impermanent and get over it, sort of thing, which can be really cold. But what the Buddha is pointing, and the Sasana is pointing to, is that these are all tempered. They work together, and the quality of loving kindness and compassion has to fully function. The sense of purity of a disinclination, disentangling oneself from greed, hatred, delusion, from desire and attachment, from self-cherishing. Those are all elements of the function of the Dhamma, function of the Sasana. And so that to be the cultivation of the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity. These are part and parcel of what is the affect, the emotional affect of the acceptance of that universal truth of impermanence. And so that there's this sense of balance is just so important. And of course, it's something that Ajahn Chah points to over and over again. The quality of balance is what distinguishes like a true insight, or the Dhamma is that which is just right. It's just right. It's just balanced. It's not inclining to a dismissal. It's not inclining to a gratification or a cherishing. It's just recognizing, oh, this is the way things truly are, and the appropriate response depends on the circumstance. But certainly, the appropriate response is always rooted in loving kindness and compassion and sympathetic joy, equanimity, stability, and say for myself, having lived with Ajahn Chah, that was his ability to, because he saw so clearly, and that he was just incredibly compassionate, and compassion is the wish to alleviate the suffering of others. And sometimes he could be pretty tough with his compassion, and but I never ever felt that he was following some kind of fleeting mood or some bias in some way. It was always rooted in Dhamma. Or there's a teacher who many people will know, Ajahn Mahabua, Thai teacher he's passed away now, but highly regarded and revered as one of the great arahants of the age, and his affect in the world, and he used to sort of say that about himself. I'm kind of coarse, kind of rough around the edges. And Ajahn Mun used to really give me a bad time because I was not very refined, and he was asked at one point, "What is the mind of an arahant like?" And his answer was only compassion. Only compassion. That was really so that sense of that absorbing of that truth. Even the sasana will pass away. Doesn't lead to a sense of dismay. It leads to wonder. It leads to a motivation of how can I help others? How can we tend to? Human beings are incredibly adept at finding new and fantastic ways of suffering. So how to help and how to rely on these fundamental truths. Anicca, of course, being the doorway, but anicca, dukkha, anatta. These are tools that we rely on for transforming the heart. So I'll offer that for reflection today. I'll leave it at that. Okay, so we'll have a bit of a break. Okay. So we have, moving into the next part of this afternoon session, Sunday talk, is opportunity for anybody who would like to ask questions and see what I can come up with for an answer. And then one of the things for whoever is asking questions is to wait for the mic. So then the question gets recorded.
Thank you very much, Ajahn. My question is, I am and ego are very deeply embedded in our consciousness.
Yes.
And you mentioned about observing impermanence, which would help. Are there any other practical steps we can take every day to start dismantling ego and I am?
Well, I think that the just revolving around, reflecting around that impermanence, instability, because usually that sense of self, that sense of I am, is so solid and embedded in our perception of who and what we think we are, and then just by recollecting, reflecting on the nature of whatever we think is self. How there's one of the idioms that the Buddha uses over and over again. For however one conceives it, it is always other than that, and that is it's an important recognition, and then I think of course impermanence, because it can be picked up in so many different ways, and it's displaying itself all the time. But then also the aspect of suffering or dissatisfaction, how unsatisfying it is to hold to some position or to assume a position or to hope for a position, and just how unsatisfying it is. And so that one recognizes the limitation of that. When one recognizes the limitation, and the inclination to relinquishment is there. Also, just really paying attention to the element of what's the feeling like when I don't assume or establish this sense of I am solidly. What's the feeling? Because it tends to be, that's kind of comfortable, that's kind of pleasant. It's like you don't, like in contemplation of the body, you don't always have to just contemplate all of the, all the things that can go wrong with it. We just actually pay attention to things that can go right. What's it feel like to not have a toothache? It feels kind of good, we don't pay attention to that. We just yeah.
If nothing's permanent, does that apply to mind?
Oh, absolutely. Even more.
So
it's like the Buddha is very explicit. He said you'd be better off taking this body as a permanent self. At least it's around for 70, 80, 100 years at best. But the mind is constantly changing, constantly shifting. Moods and impressions are constantly shifting. So it's that's definitely. And of course, the mind is the avenue by which we can see clearly. So this is why mind cultivation plays such a huge role in the Buddha's path. But the Buddha isn't saying that if you make this mind really clear, then you're going to have a permanent mental state that's you can take refuge in. He's saying no, you can establish the knowing and free the heart, free the mind from its own habits and conditioning. So it's your doorway into liberation, but it is you're not trying to extract out some sort of pure mind somewhere.
Is liberation impermanent?
By its very definition, say like Nibbana is stable, is permanent. That's liberation, freedom. that is the possibility. That through these seeing and understanding these impermanent phenomena, we can realize a place of stability and liberation. Takes a bit of work. And it's not because we have to make it happen, but it's more like, how do we get out of the way? It's our habits, our conditioning, our assumptions that keep tripping us up. What was that?
Is Nibbana unconditional?
It's unconditioned, yeah.
Unconditioned.
Yeah. So, because if it were a condition, the nature of any condition is that it is impermanent, it's unsatisfactory, it's not self. But the nature of Nibbana is that it is unconditioned. And that's the part of one of the chants that the Nibbana Sutta. Is, there is this unconditioned, unformed, uncreated, unmade. If there wasn't that, then there would be no freedom from the form, from the condition.
Can Nibbana make the connection to visit you, or you have to go to Nibbana?
Well, I mean, thinking in those terms, you're tying yourself up either way.
Good.
It's like Ajahn Chah. It's one of those. It's just a place where there's no coming, no going, no standing still. What's that? So you can't conceive of it. It's not but it doesn't mean that it can't be experienced.
And another question is about your voice. Is it because you mentioned Ajahn Mahabodh that he has been a bit coarse with his disciples or people around him? And this is a little bit of a personal question. Does your voice always been soft and kind and loving?
Depends who it was the object of.
As everything is impermanent, I thought it might be a good question to ask.
Well, I hope I've gotten better. Early years of being the abbot of Wat Nanachat was pretty insufferable. because the topic was even the Sasana will pass away, I thought there's a lull in the question, so I'll fill it with a sutta quote. And because it's addressing the the arising and passing of even say the Buddha's dispensation. It's a little bit long, but I think it's I thought it was interesting. This is Samyutta 15, Sutta number 20. And on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha on Mount Vulture Peak. There the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus thus. Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, those bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this, Bhikkhus, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. A first point is not discerned of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. In the past, bhikkhus, this Mount Waipula, this is Waipula. Mount Waipula is one of the mountains that I assume Vulture Peak is probably on Mount Waipula. But there's Rajagaha was a city that was surrounded by 7 kind of hills, big hills. They call them mountains. In the past, bhikkhus, this Mount Waipula was called Pachi Nawangsa. And at that time, these people were called Tivaras. The lifespan of the Tivaras was 40,000 years. They could climb Mount Pachi Nawangsa in 4 days and descend in 4 days. At that time, the Blessed One, Kakusanda, so a former Buddha, Kakusanda, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, had arisen in the world. His 2 chief disciples were named Vidura and Sanjiva, an excellent pair. See, bhikkhus, that name for this mountain has disappeared. Those people have died, and that Blessed One has attained final Nibbana. So impermanent are formations, bhikkhu, so unstable, so unreliable, it is enough, bhikkhus, to experience disenchantment towards all formations, enough to become dispassionate towards them, enough to be liberated from them. And at another time in the past, bhikkhus, this Mount Waipula was called Wankaka, and at that time these people were called Rohitasas. And the lifespan was such and such, so you could climb Mount Wankaka in 3 days and descend in 3 days, and so on. It follows the same pattern. At still another time in the past, bhikkhus, this Mount Waipula was called Supasa. And at that time, these people were called Supiyas. The lifespan was 20,000 years. They could climb Mount Supasa in 2 days and descend in 2 days. And that was his Blessed One's name. It was Kassapa. He was an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one. 2 chief disciples were so-and-so. And of course it changed. At present, bhikkhus, this Mount Waipula is called Waipula. And at present, these people are called Magadhans. The lifespan of the Magadhans is short, limited, fleeting. One who lives long lives 100 years or a little more. The Magadhans climb Mount Waipula in an hour and descend in an hour. At present, I have arisen in the world, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one. My 2 chief disciples are named Sariputta and Moggallana, an excellent pair. There will come a time, bhikkhus, when the name for this mountain will have disappeared, when these people will have died, and I will have attained final Nibbana. So impermanent are formations, bhikkhus, so unstable, so unreliable. It is enough, bhikkhus, to experience disenchantment towards all formations, enough to become dispassionate towards them, enough to be liberated from them. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said this. This was called Pachina Wangsa by the Tivaras, and I'm sort of referring to Mount Waipula. and Wankaka by the Rohitasa, Supasa by the Supia people, Wepula by the Magadan folk. And then it ends with the verse, impermanent, alas, are our formations. Their nature is to rise and cease. Having arisen, they cease. Their appeasement is blissful. And this is a verse that is very well known in all Buddhist circles. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya dhammina upajitva nirujanti te soam upasamo sukho. Something in Thailand that's recited at every funeral ceremony, every cremation. It's used in many different occasions, but so that's an occasion. I looked this up one time, trying to find it. I thought it must be in the Dhammapada, and it's not in the Dhammapada, which is usually a good place to find verses. But this is a place where it comes up, and of course it's in reference to this the Buddha. Yeah, even the Sasana will pass away. So that even in former times, there was this mountain, and but it's changed. The people have changed. The Buddha has changed. Everything has changed, and but it's also that sense of it's just encouragement to incline to disenchantment and dispassion. Enough to be liberated from them. Sometimes, like the word disenchantment and dispassion are in the English are sometimes perceived in a negative light, but say by Abhidhamma analysis of mental states, the quality of disenchantment and dispassion are exclusively wholesome mental states, bright mental states, and lead to release, to a letting go. And so it's a really important quality. And so because again, I was mentioning it or emphasizing it that the point of it of this contemplation of impermanence, and even the Sasana will pass away, is not to bring up discouragement and disgust, but a sense of this incredible spaciousness that this is the way it is. How could it be otherwise? Why do I resist that? Why do I grumble and complain about it? It's just this is truth. So it's an important aspect of that, and so even the Buddha addressing the arising and the passing away of dispensations of he didn't look at his dispensation as the Sasana is going to be around forever. But if it was going to last, he gave the conditions for it to last well. This is what you do to look after it. It's like similar to the Ajahn Chah's meeting of the guy at the airport. People do stupid things on their own, but that isn't what the Buddha taught them to do. It's not his encouragement. Yeah. Where is he? There we go.
Thanks for the talk. Can you talk to what to do with disenchantment? And often there seems to be some confusion. Maybe you may feel you're, maybe being lazy by not feeling like you want to engage with the world, or things like this. And also adding to that, recognizing maybe a path towards being in a more healthier environment, a gradual migration towards living in more solitude or spending more time in retreats, and understanding the distinction between sort of trusting that you can actually live in the world in a different way.
Right. Yeah, I think all of that, it's really just sort of really to sort of look at it in a big picture way of okay, yeah, this is a zero-sum relationship. I'm losing more than I'm getting from this world business. And but it's not sort of of discouragement, but that disenchantment is one. Okay, now if I step back, what can I engage with that is really helpful? And one of the things that comes up over and over and over again in the Buddha's teachings is good spiritual friendships. It's just so important to because on our own, well, I don't know about anybody else. On my own, I don't trust myself. It's important to be surrounded by good people, surrounded by where people where you get good examples and good leadership and good encouragement and things that are really wholesome. And then the fruits, come up on their own, so you're able to encourage yourself. But the I think that drawing close to good people, and that's in these days, it's not necessarily just. I mean, you guys are very fortunate that you've got a place like Amaravati that is a refuge that is peaceful, and you come here and you don't necessarily even have to engage with anybody, but there's usually good encouragement just by being here. People are keeping precepts. There's a example of just the fact that it's a very large sangha, and we rely completely on people's generosity, so that you're just drawing close to generous, kind people who are inclined to reflection and investigation and training themselves in a skillful way, so living with integrity. It's just so important to see that, and then we ourselves get motivated to manifest that ourselves, because one, you see others and you think, wow, yeah, that's really worthy of emulation. And there's, I've been around monasteries for long enough to know that there's people you come close to and you really don't want to be like them. But you have to pay attention to what are what are the qualities that do align with Dhamma? What did the Buddha really encourage? And then realize, oh yeah, that really is something that has the possibility of bearing fruit. So it's like encouraging oneself. So the external environment, the people one lives with, and then the internal reflection and investigation, to reviewing and reassessing, reestablishing our priorities, and so that it works together. But I think one of the key elements is the is that association with good spiritual friendships, and of course nowadays it's not even absolutely necessary, to. You have the good fortune to have a good place that isn't far away, and mean, where my monastery is in America, and most people that are here are probably don't live more than an hour away from here. And like an hour away from our monastery is still a long way away from the monastery. So people are incredibly fortunate. It's close by. It's accessible. And but then even if one doesn't come, at least just with the internet, I mean, you can be listening to such good teachings. I mean, there's a lot of junk you really want to avoid. But what is available is quite amazing, both in terms of contemporary and past teachers. Like I just I just downloaded about 15 talks from into my podcast channel, talks of Ajahn Chah in Thai and in the Isan dialect. And I know that they exist, and I found them in different places. They're all collected in one place, and just working in this podcast is just incredibly easy. And so that's what I've been listening to.
I just add to that. Did the Buddha say that noble friends was the most important element on the path?
He did. He did. He was. There's this beautiful sutta where Ananda has spent his day in seclusion, and he has this insight, and he's really fired up. And he comes back to tell the Buddha his insight. He said, "Oh Lord, I had this insight that half the holy life is having good spiritual friendships." And the Buddha says, "No, Ananda, is not half the holy life. It is the whole of the holy life." And so it's the Buddha put a lot of emphasis on it, and then in other places it comes up in different ways. There we go.
Thank you, Ajahn. I was just interested to hear more about the wholeheartedness, the qualities of wholeheartedness, because you mentioned that the English language does not afford a word that captures it. And I think there's something that I'm hearing, or perhaps I've experienced, that can go from non-attachment, dispassion, but could also be apathy.
Yes,
which is not helpful in the world.
Yeah.
Because there's no purpose. So I suppose what's the continuum? It feels like this should be a continuum towards something.
Yes, and that's where so like our and I think any language has its own sort of biases or limitations. But certainly for like English is a great language for describing objects, but for describing mental states, it's pretty limited, or emotional states. You have to learn how to play with it, play with the language, but you just that sense of disenchantment and dispassion that in English it can come across as a bit cold, whereas in the Pali that's intrinsically wholesome. As soon as you use the word that's associated with, those are immediately bright states of mind that are the culmination of a continuum of building on basis of, like, there's a progression in the suttas that it has many different beginning points, reflection, sila, motivation in Dhamma, faith, but then it's there, from those different starting points. Then there's the arising of a sense of delight, and then with delight there's a sense of joy. And from joy there's a sense of tranquility. From tranquility there's a sense of happiness. From happiness then there's concentration. So that usually we skip all those other things. We just want to get to the concentration part. You don't. But then from that samadhi concentration, there's the arising of clear vision, clear knowledge and vision of the way things truly are. And then it's from that knowledge and vision of the way things truly are that's been based on these bright, wholesome states, then there's the arising of disenchantment. So it's not oh crap, it's impermanent. It's wow, look at that. You know, it's exhilarating. It's uplifting. I don't want to go. Oh, I really want to let that go. And then from disenchantment, there's dispassion. And so that these are, so those are even more refined states built on this cascade of well-being. So it's really, sometimes you have to get the context of how the Buddha uses language, and then also what those intrinsically there. Because I was saying, as a Abhidhamma analysis of those words, and those are completely wholesome.
And I suppose just hearing what you're saying, is there an element of non-importance? What I mean by that is that things lose their importance that we give them, and therefore...
Yeah, like actually the... one of the... it's like losing the flavor. It doesn't. It's not the flavor of it is just not so enticing. So it's it doesn't become so, because just in terms of where we incline to what we think is delicious and exciting and interesting, and then that doesn't become so important anymore. What becomes important is clarity and stability.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no questions, we're almost 4:00. We'll wrap it up. Leave it at that. Thank you for your attention.